We have a quorum, so would you just take the roll, please?
Senator Hancock?
Here.
Senator Anderson? Senator Mitchell?
Here.
Senator Leno?
Here.
We're going to begin today with a special presentation from the Inside Out program at San Quentin Prison, the Guiding Rage into Power program. Are the individuals here Jacques Verdun, Patrick Mims, and Jenny Lyon? Please come forward, sit at the table. Welcome to the committee. We're very interested in your presentation and in your program.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jacques Verdun. I'm the executive director of the Inside Out organization. That's inside spelled as in having an insight. And on behalf of both the prisoners and the victims we work with, we would like to thank the committee for being able to amplify those voices to inform your decision-making process. Inside Out is a nonprofit that represents my 17 years of working inside state prisons as a volunteer. All three of us work for the organization, though our lives represent radically different circumstances that brought us together that we will tell you about. Our goal today is to present you the urgent reasons to end the 30-plus years period that has seen cut after cut in prison rehabilitation programming and make available effective, high-quality programs such as the one we will present to you today. All three of us will speak for about 10 minutes, and then there's some Q&A afterwards.
Thank you.
First up to my right here is Mrs. Jenny Lyon.
Thank you. I'm a little soft-spoken, so I'll bring this close. I really want to thank the committee for having us here today. It is an honor to be here representing our fellow Californians and to have this opportunity to speak of a matter of such importance to us personally and to our state. I recently graduated from San Francisco State University. I got my degree in cinema, and I am working on my first feature-length documentary, which is actually about the story that I'm going to share with you today. I came from a very normal, all-American, happy family. My dad was a dentist in the Army. My mom stayed home and raised us kids. And all was well until my father had a brush with infidelity, and my parents went through a very bitter divorce. And one night, my mother invited my father over to speak about some outstanding divorce issues, and they were not ready to be alone together. A fight broke out between them. No one else was there. A knife from the kitchen was involved. They both sustained many stab wounds. My mother was killed, and my father just barely survived. I was only 17 years old, and I had all of my sense of security ripped away from me in one night, and every day since then has been a path of healing for me. My father is now serving his 20th year of a life sentence for my mother's murder. My path of healing led me to the restorative justice movement because, I'll get to that in a second, but that's how I met Jacques and became involved in the GRIP program, where I work as a volunteer to serve as a surrogate victim for these men to understand the impact of their actions on their victims and their victims' families. And I find this work to be incredibly healing for me personally, intrinsically rewarding, and because it gives me an opportunity for my pain to serve a higher purpose and to honor my mother's life by making sure that by helping these men understand the impact of their actions on their victims, that they develop a sense of empathy so that they will never hurt anyone in such a deep and lasting way ever again. It is powerful to behold the accountability with which the men hear what I have to say and internalize the messages that I bring of tremendous pain and suffering that they have caused. And for them to really take that in and be held accountable is a powerful thing. Now, 95%, as you know, 95% of these prisoners will be released from prison someday. So without programs like GRIP that hold these men truly accountable for their actions, we would be releasing men who would, and women, who would re-victimize society. So these programs actively help stop that process of re-victimization and recidivism, which is a fancy word for more people being hurt. We have the power to stop that. Programs like this intervene and stop this from happening. So it's also a really profound way for people like me to come in and serve as volunteers and have their pain serve a higher purpose, to honor our victims by promising that the people who hurt them will never hurt anyone like that again. The second way that I work in the volunteer capacity with these guys, and the second way that it helps with my healing, is for them to understand the secondary victimization of their own families. Because just like the pain of having lost my mother impacts my life every single day, the pain of my father's incarceration impacts my life every single day. And I want these men to understand that even if they think they have a victimless crime like drug use, they have hurt their families terribly, and to hold them accountable for that as well. So the program, when we lose a parent to prison, there's a social stigma of shame by association that falls on the shoulders of their innocent family members and their children. And there's a financial hardship that goes along with it. We've lost a breadwinner to the system, and our families struggle financially. And we also have lost their love and guidance from our daily lives. The emotional impact is tremendous. 1 in 28 children in America have a parent in prison. That's too many. And every single one of them is at higher risk of falling into the system themselves because of these disadvantages financially, the loss of their guidance from their parents. So we really cannot, as a society, afford to throw these people away for life. And I'm here to implore the State Senate to meaningfully fund programs like GRIP that help return these men to their families, to their communities, in a way that is safe, that they will not re-victimize people, that they will instead contribute in a meaningful way. And I have seen the work that the guys in the GRIP program do. I've been volunteering there for 4 years now. And I can tell you that these men are accountable for their actions. They are not going to hurt anyone again. And I learned recently when we presented before the State Parole Board that the state actually mandates that these men show insight into their crimes before they can be released from prison. But if the state does not provide programs within all the prisons, not just San Quentin, which is very fortunate to have lots of programs, but all the prisons need programs like these so that these men have a way to meet that state requirement for insight. And so that when these men are ultimately returned, they will be returned safe to their societies. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to represent the interests of so many people in here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate you telling us your story more than we can tell you, too.
Yeah, I want to thank Jenny for her bravery and for her noble effort to do something constructive with what is obviously a serious trauma. My own history as to how I ended up working in prison also involves a family member that was, interestingly enough, both a prisoner and a victim. My father was a prisoner. I grew up in Holland, and my father was held captive in World War II. and forced to do forced labor for the Germans. He had a pretty traumatic time, particularly walking back from close to Poland back to Holland when, at the end of the war, when Germany was being bombed. And as kids, we used to hear him scream in his sleep. When the Berlin Wall came down, he decided to go back, find his captors, and make his peace, which was unusual. I lived in a blue-collar neighborhood. He was the milkman. He didn't leave town, so to leave the country was a big step. But he was driven, and it's a longer story, of course, but he found some of the survivors of the captors and some of the captors themselves, sat around, made his peace, and came back a radically different human being. And I'm his son. So in the early part of my career working in prisons, we developed a program that brings victims and offenders together for mutual healing. That program is in 12 different settings. I believe Ms. Hancock has visited.
12 different settings?
Yes.
12 different prisons?
No, about 6 different California state prisons. I went on to really look for a comprehensive offender accountability program. And so I've developed a program that is a year-long effort called GRIP, meaning Guiding Rage into Power, which is a best practices methodology aimed at effectively transforming criminal behavior patterns. In prison speak, it's called Leaving Prison Before You Get Out. There's 4 elements to the course. It's about learning to stop your violence, developing emotional intelligence, cultivating mindfulness, and understanding, truly understanding, as you got a whiff of earlier, victim impact. So the program is a trauma treatment-based model that integrates the latest brain research and examines the origins of criminogenic conduct. It undoes the characteristic destructive behavioral patterns that lead to transgressions. So the program really stands by itself, but also optimizes a number of other programs around employment, around housing, where people have the attitude to keep the job and to stay in the house and to have a relationship that's functional. The groups come together in tribes. It's much like gangs, except that they're used for constructive purposes. So the members of the tribes have a real serious feeling of ownership of their own learning community. And the name of the tribe derives from the amount of time the men have served together. So currently in San Quentin, we have 3 groups of violent offenders, Tribe 654, Tribe 662, and Tribe 671, about 30 guys in every tribe. It's a resocialization program, and it's about healing, not acting out and causing harm. So we've taken the gang concept, which often is about street love, is about finding ways to belong somewhere for disenfranchised people, and turned it towards positive use. People disclose their crime, they get to face their demons. It's a very no-nonsense approach, yet we have over 300 people on the waiting list that we can't serve at this point. Little anecdote, if I may. We had a shot caller for the Crips in the class. A shot caller is somebody who is a senior member of a gang. And he sat there, with his arms folded for a while. But at least he came back to class every time. And we paired him up with a younger member that the 2 men knew each other from their neighborhood. And at one point, the shot caller raised his hand. And he said, "I got something." I said, "Okay, what did you get?" He said, hurt people hurt people." He said, "And I know because my mother shot my alcoholic father when she was abusing him. And the house was surrounded for 24 hours by police who didn't know quite what was going on in there. And I've been lashing out from pain like that my whole life." And then his apprentice, a 265-pound guy there for domestic violence, named Brother G, put his hand up. And he said, "I got some too." I said, "Well, what did you get?" He said, heal people, heal people." He said, and I know because this brother has been teaching me how to live well. And then both men wept. And so did the rest of us in that room. And those 8 words, hurt people, heal people, describe the program in a very eloquent way. The program is unique in that it was developed from the inside out. I have spent 17 years volunteering in state prisons and worked with thousands of prisoners and worked with many victims. Prisoners from all racial backgrounds, all gang affiliations. And so what we're bringing to you here hopefully can be experienced as an earned opinion. You know, we've rolled up our sleeves and gone into the trenches. And the program is very successful. We have good research from the National Center of Crime and Delinquency of the University of Amsterdam. We have 111 guys graduated. 17 have been given a release date by either the parole board or a judge. 0% of them have reoffended. 0%. The average recidivism rate in California is 64%. Within 3 years is back. We're on the process, and we have concluded with some other guys a training where they can go out as change agents and work with challenged youth in Richmond and in high schools to prevent the school-to-prison pipeline. Very powerful to see that work done by people that have been there and done that. 1 in 107 people in America is in prison. 1 in 34 is under correctional supervision. That's parole, probation, or prison. As Jenny said, 95% of all inmates come back to be somebody's neighbor. How do we want that? Perhaps it's time not to just be tough on crime. Perhaps it's time to get smart on crime. Perhaps it's not okay to think of early release, but perhaps it can be okay to think of earned release. So, the 75 men that are currently participating in the program have served almost 2,000 years together. That's $60,000 per year per inmate in California, which is the average. The 17 people that are no longer incarcerated represent a savings of over $1 million to the state of California. We're sitting here before you today to make the case that we're ready to roll this out. We're making a video instructional series of the program with the help and support of the director of rehabilitation, who I spotted in the audience. We have a workbook. We have particularly chosen to work like that because there's many prisons that are not so accessible, that where actually nothing is happening. People are just stuck there, and it's pretty dismal. So we made a presentation for the parole board. I saw the director also in the audience. And we've had very supportive reception of the program there. And it is difficult for a parole commissioner to uphold criteria that inmates have no way of learning the skills to meet those criteria. So we're sitting here firmly on outside of the us and them position here on a win-win situation. And the reason we haven't politicked before is because it hasn't been the time. Now is the time. We can no longer afford to look away. And everybody can win. We can make an increase of public safety while releasing people and creating tax savings. In closing, under AB 109, it is stated that state prisons from now on are for violent offenders. I think it behooves any public safety committee or anybody who governs state prisons to make sure that a quality, highly effective, violence prevention-based program is instituted in every state prison. It would prevent re-victimization, it would serve public safety, it would save tax dollars. So as I stand before you here today, I do not stand alone. Please imagine behind me thousands of prisoners we've worked with and their families. equally their victims and their families, the 1 in 28 school-age children that have a parent incarcerated, that present the highest likelihood to go to prison themselves. Please imagine all of them as we ask you to do what's right here. I thank you for considering this.
Thank you very much.
I need to look at the clock. I like to talk.
Okay, no, we'll have questions afterwards, too. So basically, whatever you want to add, and then the committee will ask some questions.
Thank you. My name is Pat Mims, and I am here to represent what could be. You see, I spent 20 years, 64 days, 9.5 hours, and 32 seconds in prison for the second-degree murder of Kevin Anderson. I say his name in honor because I had no right to take his life. When I was sentenced back in 1989, I was told that I had to pay $1,000 restitution for court costs. That $1,000 restitution really meant nothing to me at the time. It was like, okay, you get it when you can. See, I didn't have an understanding at that time what it meant to take someone's life. As I entered the prison system, I did what most prisoners do. I hung out and looked for a place to be safe. Back when I was in prison, I was in some of the toughest, New Folsom, Old Folsom, and being safe meant being tough, meant being able to protect yourself. See, I didn't know then that that was all a culture. That was a myth. That was unreal. I didn't understand the trauma that I had gone through in life, and my trauma had led me to become very violent. And that's an important piece with a number of the men that I represent today, is that they don't understand their trauma. It's layers of it that needs to be unpacked. While I was in prison, I completed vocational electric, vocational plumbing, vocational office services. I completed the college program. I was instrumental in starting a drug rehabilitation program. I was instrumental in starting a peer crisis program. But the part that I wasn't instrumental in was understanding the nature and magnitude of what I had done. And see, that's what I'd learned. I'd learned that I had taken a life. I had done one of the most heinous things that society could ever judge me on. So when I talked about restitution in that $1,000, it wasn't about restitution for $1,000. It was about restitution in how I spend the rest of my life. See, that's how I pay restitution today. And I learned that in understanding my trauma. It's not an excuse, by no means. It's a way of understanding how to move forward and how to help other people that don't understand. See, there are some people in there that have been doing wrong for so long, they think it's right. And until they are learning about what's affected them and how they are affecting others, it will continue. And that's what recidivism is all about. I was released in 2009, March 3rd. I call it 3 Square Day because it was 3309. One of the happiest days in my life. And I understood then that had I not learned how to take care of my emotional intelligence, that I wouldn't have made it out here. And when I talk about emotional intelligence, I'm talking about, yes, I learned a great deal of trades. I could have got a job. That was no problem. But could I have kept that job? Did I have the emotional intelligence to get paid on Friday and show back up on Monday? Did I have the emotional intelligence to not feel shame towards society and walking in certain places and feeling like they know where I've been? And this is what a number of the men face when they come home. See, I've been very fortunate in my walk, I'll say. Immediately upon release, I was fortunate enough to receive a job and starting a program for sex-trafficked kids. And I'm happy to say, Senator Hancock, you were instrumental in starting the agency, Bay Area Women Against Rape. I'm the Sexually Exploited Minors Program Director. We just were nationally recognized for our work in human trafficking. And Marsha Blackstock says hi, by the way.
I love this program. We started this program in 1971.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And for the past 5 years, I've directed their trafficking program. And I couldn't have done this without the work I was able to do inside, without the layers of unpacking of trauma that we went through and holding each other accountable for our crimes. It was a time where we have to break the myth of prison culture. And men such as myself that have gone through it can do that. We can go back in, we can speak with the men about prison culture, and we can say where we've been and where we're going and how you can get there. And I thank you for this opportunity to being able to share that with you.